Get ready, because on today's deep dive, we are going way back.
Way back.
To 1980s New York City.
Oh, yeah.
We're uncovering the story of Howard Pappy Mason, a name that'll send chills down your spine.
Yeah.
And also a name that you might recognize from...
From where?
From rap lyrics.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
So we're using his Wikipedia entry as our source material to uncover this guy's story.
Okay.
From building a drug empire to the shocking crime that made him infamous.
Right.
And ultimately the unexpected way that his name still lives on today.
His legacy lives on.
His legacy lives on.
Yeah, it's fascinating how a convicted murderer can become almost like a cultural reference point.
Especially in music.
Yeah. Exactly.
So his story, it's more than just a true crime thriller. I mean, it touches on some pretty big themes like ambition, the price of power,
the cost of it all,
and the strange relationship between the underworld and popular culture. So Pappy Mason, this wasn't just some small-time hustler.
No, not at all.
This guy was running...
He had a full-blown
operation.
Right. He, along with his partner, Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols.
Oh, Fat Cat Nichols.
Yeah, they headed up a gang called...
The Babos.
In Jamaica, Queens.
Okay.
And they weren't just like pushing a few dime bags on the corner.
Right.
Their drug smuggling ring was pulling in an estimated... $200,000.
Months. I mean, that's serious money even today.
It's serious cash.
So beyond the numbers, though, what made their operations stand out?
Yeah.
Were they just brutally efficient?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was partially just the sheer scale of it.
Right.
Like you said, they were moving a lot of product.
Right.
But they also managed to fly under the radar for a really long time.
Oh, really?
They weren't flashy
or
reckless, like you see with some of the gangs. They cultivated this network of loyal associates, and they kept their operations very tightly controlled, which is what makes the next part of the story even more shocking.
So you're talking about the murder of...
Edward Byrne.
Edward Byrne.
In 1988, Officer Byrne, he was a rookie cop, was assassinated while guarding a witness in a drug case.
Wow.
And the truly chilling detail here is that the order for that hit...
The order for the hit...
came from Pappy Mason.
From prison.
From prison, who was already serving time on a gun charge.
He orchestrated a hit from prison.
From behind bars.
I mean, that takes some serious cold-bloodedness.
It was definitely a statement.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a crime, it was a message. A blatant attack on law enforcement. And it really sent shockwaves through the city and beyond.
So after this...
After that, he was public enemy number one.
Public enemy number one, I imagine the authorities were coming after him pretty hard.
Byrne's murder... it really galvanized the authorities. I mean, the feds launched a massive investigation. And they got their conviction in 1989.
Okay.
Mason was found guilty on federal charges.
Including
the murder of Officer Byrne.
But his legal battle didn't end there, did it?
No, it didn't.
No.
The sentencing dragged on for another 4 years.
4 years.
There were questions raised about Mason's mental competency.
Oh, really?
Which just added another layer of complexity to this already complicated case.
So even in the courtroom, there was all this back and forth, this uncertainty.
Yeah, there was always this...
surrounding this guy.
This cloud of uncertainty.
This cloud of uncertainty surrounding Pappy Mason.
Yeah, but ultimately...
In
1994, he was sentenced to life in prison.
Okay.
And that could have been the end of the story.
Right.
Another notorious criminal.
Fading
into the annals of history.
Right.
But that's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
No.
This is where things get really interesting.
This is where it gets really interesting.
So Pappy Mason's story doesn't end in prison.
It doesn't end there.
It finds its way into popular culture.
Into
the world of hip-hop.
A world of hip-hop.
So how did a convicted murderer's name...
how did it become
a reference point in music?
What does that say about our fascination with figures who operate outside the law?
Yeah, I'm really curious to find out where this goes.
Me too.
So stay with us as we dive into the unexpected connection.
Yeah, the unexpected connection.
Between Pappy Mason and the world of hip-hop. So we've established Pappy Mason was this major figure in the drug world, and then there's the Edward Byrne murder.
Right.
Which is just chilling.
Yeah.
But now I'm really struggling with this idea of how his name ends up in rap lyrics.
Yeah, it is surprising. It's not what you would expect.
Yeah, you'd think a convicted murderer.
Yeah, especially one.
Especially one who targeted law enforcement.
Right.
would just be universally condemned.
Yeah, you would think so.
Right.
But in hip-hop, things aren't always so black and white.
Okay, so who are we talking about here?
Wow.
Which rappers are referencing Pappy Mason?
Well, one of those notable examples,
Yeah.
and I think maybe one of the earliest examples,
Okay.
comes from Nas.
Okay. Nas.
Yeah, and he's a legendary rapper from Queensbridge.
Queensbridge, so practically Pappy Mason's old stomping grounds.
Yeah, pretty much.
And for those who aren't super familiar with hip-hop,
Yeah.
Nas is considered one of the greatest lyricists of all time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like his storytelling and wordplay,
Incredible.
it's legendary.
Really respect it.
So that makes his reference to Pappy Mason all the more interesting.
Yeah, and it's not just a casual name drop. Like,
Oh.
it's woven into
Ah.
the fabric of his song.
Which song?
It's in his song, The World Is Yours, from his debut album, Illmatic.
Okay.
And he says, the mind activation react like I'm facing time like Pappy Mason with pens I'm embracing.
Wow. So he's drawing a parallel between his own craft, writing lyrics,
Yeah.
and Pappy Mason's life in prison.
Yeah, where writing letters might have been
Like his main form of communication.
his main form of communication, yeah.
So it's like finding power and expression in a confined space.
Exactly.
And this isn't the only time Nas mentions Pappy Mason, is it?
No, he mentions him in several other songs
Really?
across multiple albums.
What?
Like in Get Down from God's Son, Just a Moment from Street's Disciple.
What do you think Nas saw in Pappy Mason that kept bringing him back to that reference?
Well, I mean, I think it might have something to do with Nas's own reputation as like a street poet.
Right.
Someone who tells these really raw, unflinching stories
Yeah.
about life in the projects.
And they both came from similar backgrounds.
Yeah, in a way, they were both products of their environment,
Right.
navigating a world where survival often meant,
Operating outside the law.
yeah. And maybe Nas saw in Mason this kind of tragic hero, someone who did achieve a level of notoriety,
Right.
albeit through criminal means.
So it's not about glorifying the crime,
No.
but more about understanding the complexities
The complexities of these figures.
and the forces that shape them.
Yeah, and you see this same theme, this idea of like navigating the streets
Uh-huh.
and the allure of power, in another example.
I like you.
50 Cent.
50 Cent.
Now he rose to fame,
Early 2000s?
yeah, early 2000s, with his hardcore gangster rap.
Right.
So in a way, it's not surprising
Right.
to find Pappy Mason's name in his music,
Right.
but it's still interesting how he uses the reference.
So how does he?
Well, he directly references
Okay.
both Mason and Fat Cat Nichols
Uh.
in his song Ghetto Quran, Forgive Me.
Okay.
And that song kind of reflects on
Huh.
the violence and betrayals that were rampant in that world.
Right. And there's almost this disappointment
Yeah, he seems disappointed.
that Nichols turned informant against Mason.
Right, there's this sense of loyalty.
His code.
His code, yeah, this warped sense of honor.
Amongst those who live by the street code,
Exactly.
it's a different set of rules.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
And again, it's important to remember, these artists are reflecting
They're reflecting the realities.
that they've seen, that they've experienced.
It's not about saying, hey, this is okay.
No, it's about showing,
This is what it is.
it's about showing a side of the world that most people don't see.
And these references to Pappy Mason, they aren't confined to just American hip-hop, are they?
No, not at all.
You mentioned that his story had an international reach.
Absolutely.
So are there examples of other artists?
Yeah, for example, there's a Serbian rapper named Struka,
Okay.
and he name drops Mason in his song Bomba.
And what's he saying?
Well, he's comparing his own street cred,
Okay.
his influence, to that of Pappy Mason.
Like he sees him as this legendary figure.
Yeah, he sees him as this almost like larger-than-life figure.
So the fascination with Pappy Mason,
It crosses borders.
it crosses borders.
Yeah, it speaks to this global interest
In figures who operate outside the law,
and build empires,
Yeah.
leave their mark,
even if that mark is
stained with violence.
stained with violence.
And it's not always about just notoriety.
Right.
There are also cases where artists use Pappy Mason to represent resilience,
Okay.
like French rapper Booba.
Oh, okay.
He mentions Mason in his song Call It By Two.
What was he getting at there?
Well, he seems to connect with Mason's ambition.
Like this relentless pursuit of his goals?
Yeah, even though they were channeled in these destructive ways
It's interesting how all of these different artists,
from such different backgrounds.
yeah, find different meanings in his story.
It's like he's become a blank canvas for them.
Right. They're projecting their own interpretations onto him.
Yeah, like power, ambition, the struggle against the odds.
It really highlights how these figures even when they're reviled for their actions,
Yeah.
can become these cultural touchstones.
They spark debate.
Yeah, they challenge our ideas.
Yeah, force us to confront these uncomfortable truths.
And speaking of challenging norms, we have to talk about Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, yeah.
His 2013 bit cipher verse.
That was a powerful verse.
It was. He mentions Pappy Mason in there.
He does.
And Kendrick, for anyone who doesn't know,
One of the most influential rappers of our time.
yeah, and known for his complex lyrics and social commentary.
Absolutely.
So I'm really curious.
It's a really interesting reference.
Yeah, how's he using it?
It's actually more subtle
Oh,
than some of the other examples.
okay.
But given his stature, it carries a lot of weight.
Right.
It seems like he's using Pappy Mason to comment on something bigger.
Bigger than just the man himself.
Yeah, like the cycle of violence and poverty.
How they can trap people.
Exactly.
So it's not about glamorizing Pappy Mason.
No, it's using his story.
To examine those larger social issues.
And that's what's so compelling about this whole thing.
Pappy Mason.
His legacy extends beyond just his crimes.
Yeah, he's become a symbol.
Yeah, like a cautionary tale.
And even a source of inspiration.
Right.
It really makes you think about the complexities of human nature.
And the forces that shape our choices.
And there's one more place where Pappy Mason pops up in popular culture. And this is in the Netflix series Luke Cage.
Oh, that's right.
It's a brief mention.
It's a quick reference.
But it's enough to let the viewers know.
We're dealing with serious players here.
Yeah, like his name carries that weight.
Absolutely. It shows how deeply ingrained his name has become.
In our culture.
In our cultural consciousness.
So what does it all mean?
Yeah, why this fascination?
And why are we still talking about this guy?
Why are we so drawn to figures like Pappy Mason?
Especially in a world where we say we value law and order.
It's a great question, and I think it speaks to our innate fascination with the dark side of human nature.
Like we're simultaneously
repelled by these figures. It's like we're looking into this world.
That's both terrifying and thrilling.
Yeah.
And we can't look away.
It's like a car crash you can't look away from.
And it's not just escapism either.
No.
I mean, a lot of these artists who reference Pappy Mason come from communities that have been
deeply impacted
by these things.
By crime, by poverty, by systemic injustice.
They're using his story to reflect those realities.
Right, to try and explore those complexities.
So it's not about celebrating criminal behavior.
Not at all.
It's about understanding.
It's about understanding the context. Our pressures, the choices.
The difficult choices.
Yeah, the difficult choices that people face.
And that leads us to this bigger question.
Yeah.
Why does a figure like Pappy Mason resonate so much?
Why is he still relevant?
In popular culture, in hip-hop.
Especially in hip-hop. It's a great question.
It's a question that I think we need to unpack further.
Yeah, we need to dive deeper into that.
Okay, so we've really gone deep on this one.
Yeah, we have.
From Pappy Mason's rise in the drug world to that horrific murder of Edward Byrne.
Right.
And now to this really unexpected presence in music and pop culture.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It has, and I think what keeps sticking with me is how a figure like this can become a reference point in hip-hop.
It is strange, right?
It is. I mean, we're talking about a convicted murderer here.
Yeah, someone who committed a really heinous act.
And yet his name pops up in songs?
In lyrics.
By some of the biggest names in hip-hop?
Yeah, it speaks to this fascination we have.
With figures who live outside the law.
That dark side of the human experience, the allure of power.
Yeah, like they can defy societal norms.
Right. Create their own rules.
Even if those rules are ultimately destructive.
It's a complicated thing, right?
It is. Like, we're both repulsed by these figures and also intrigued by them.
Yeah, like a moth to a flame.
And I do want to be clear.
Yeah.
We're not condoning Pappy Mason's actions.
No, not at all.
It's more about trying to understand
what his story can tell us.
Yeah, like what it reveals about our society, about ourselves.
I mean, the artists who reference him, they're not necessarily saying he was a good guy.
Right.
They're using his story to explore these bigger themes.
Yeah, the complexities of crime, poverty, the choices people make.
The systems that create these conditions.
And in that way, his story becomes more than just about him.
It's about the world we live in.
Yeah, it forces us to confront those uncomfortable truths.
The things we might not want to see.
About the inequalities, the lack of opportunity, the desperation that can lead to violence.
Absolutely.
And it's a reminder that crime, it's not just about individual bad choices.
Right.
It's often a symptom of these larger societal problems.
And that's why I think it's important to engage with these stories.
To have these conversations, even if they're tough.
Yeah, to try to understand what leads someone down that path.
So Pappy Mason's legacy, it's more than just a list of crimes.
Right, it's become a symbol, a cautionary tale.
It makes us think about the consequences of our actions.
The impact we have on others.
And the systems that shape our lives.
It's a story that challenges us to do better, to create a more just world.
Where stories like his don't have to be told.
Yeah, a world where people have the opportunity to thrive, not just survive.
And that's why we do these deep dives.
Right.
To explore these complicated stories.
To peel back the layers.
To learn from the past and
hopefully
build a better future.
Build a better future.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into Pappy Mason's world.
It's been a fascinating and I think really important conversation.
I agree.
And to our listeners, keep exploring, keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.